Oh, I did the new banner too.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Mother Supreme's Cabinet of Curiosities Real Estate Division. When we're not out hawking our freak show side shows, we have to sell some actual stuff. We don't trust Kenny to sell anything, so we just let him win. This is what we get. That's why I gotta be the grown-up. But I'm Kinky Kitty.
Oh my God, Kenny, you yourself.
Kids these days. I need a good house with a timeout corner for Kenny. And there we go. Melinda.
I'm sorry. I hear an echo.
Oh no.
Okay.
Here's our lovely IrishMeli.
Hi, everybody.
We'll just let Kenny introduce himself when he composes himself. And Magic Mike is all... Kenny, mute. Back to the timeout corner. Mike is off figuring out some sort of magical spell to shut Kenny up a little bit. So, hurry, Mike. Kenny, introduce yourself. You laughing
Kenny got some nitrous oxide.
I think so.
Oh, I needed that laugh. Oh, hello. Y'all don't say anything. Okay. All right.
You okay?
Okay. Yes. Okay. We got to get on topic. All right.
And the laughing man over there is Dr. Frost, just so everyone knows.
Yes. Tonight we're going to tell you about 4 available locations. And after Dr. Frost has composed himself and starts to tell you about the location he wants to sell you, he can introduce himself. Hopefully he'll be calm. I get to go first. I would like to sell you the Sarah Winchester house. 7 stories of awesome. Wait, hold on. Only 4. We'll get to that in a minute. Oh,
yeah.
God, man. I'm already not selling this house. Sarah Winchester was born in 1840. She was the wife of William Wirt Winchester, the magnate from the Winchester Repeating Arms Company. His guns are noted to be the ones that won the Wild West. They had an infant daughter named Annie, which I'll tell you in a moment why I think that that's just adorable, because I'm a Stephen King nut. She only made it to about a month old.
Mute yourself, because we can't hear. Nobody can hear us when you're laughing.
Okay, I'm good. It's just Kitty said nut.
Oh, Jesus.
I got a lot of timeout corners, Kenny. Lots. All right. I got corners that go nowhere. I may buy this house. Anyway, she died from something called marasmus, which is just basically a wasting away. She only survived a month. They didn't have any more kids after that. And William died in 1881. Well, Sarah was an interesting woman, and she was grief-stricken and decided to start consulting mediums, which I know that they had to have thought that they hit the golden goose when she said, "Oh, help me talk to my dead daughter and my dead husband." So they did. And The medium that she consulted told her that if she kept building and building and building and building, that she would get to live forever, because otherwise the souls of all the people killed by Winchester repeating rifles were going to haunt her the rest of her life. So in her house there are actually 161 rooms. And like I said, it started out 7 stories, but when the San Francisco earthquake of 1906 hit, she lost 3 of her top stories. So she blocked off the front of her house because it was unsuitable for living, but she had to keep going. In 1971 and 2016, they found 2 new rooms that had been previously missed. I don't know how the hell you miss it, but I guess, Stephen King loosely based Rose Red on the Winchester house, and I do mean loosely. And the reason that I thought it was neat that their daughter's name was Annie is because the little teenage girl that has the psychokinesis powers in Rose Red, her name was Annie. And then in 2018, there was an actual movie called Winchester that was not about Sam and Dean. It was more closely based on Sarah Winchester and what she went through, but of course they took liberties to sell tickets. And I would suggest watching it because it has Dame Helen Mirren in it, and I mean, can't get much better than that. 38 years of 24/7 building onto this house to appease the spirits. 38 years. And it immediately stopped the day that Sarah Winchester died. And 5 months, this is a long fucking 5 months. When she died, everything got left to her niece, and her niece kept auctioning off all the furniture. She didn't want any of it. And then the house ended up finally being sold to the highest bidder. And 5 months after Sarah died, it was open to the public for the first time. She was a very eclectic woman, but she was very ahead of her time. And in her house, the modern conveniences she actually had working indoor toilets. She had steam and forced air heating, and she didn't have to pay a gas bill because there was a gas production plant on the grounds. So she literally, between that and the farm and her gardens, she really didn't have to deal with people very much at all. So she could be, the spinster, crazy cat lady, if you will.
She was very much a recluse. You're right.
Wait, what year was all of this?
It was built in.
I just need like a time frame. Like what? 1800s.
Late 1800s, early 1900s.
So what happened to the house?
It still stands, and you can go to it now.
Yeah.
And it's noted for its craftsmanship because she was hard to work for. But if you could manage to stay employed by her, she paid her carpenters and craftsmen 3 times the going rate. And
part of that was also for anonymity. Like they were supposed to keep things quiet, because she had different people work on different sections, so others wouldn't know about each one, right?
Yep. And there were stairs that went nowhere, doors that opened nowhere. There's a couple doors on the 2nd floor that open, and you really better not step out of them or else you're going to land in the yard.
Okay, so like why was it made like that?
Because she had to keep building to appease those spirits of people that were killed by the Winchester arms.
Because her husband owned the gun company. He was the owner.
Well, what would have happened if she wouldn't have built on?
I don't think she wanted to find out.
No, they were going to attack her mortal soul. Like she was not taking the risk. And September 5th, 1922 is when she died, and she was the ripe old age of, I believe, 83, I think. But again, the rest of her modern conveniences she had was gas, push button gas lights. She had 3 elevators. One of them was electric. And she had indoor toilets. She had her sink basin was actually she supposedly may have or may not have, there's no patent proving that she did, like where your sink basin is, where it has like cut out part for your soap, but there's nothing to prove that she did or didn't. But she died. And funny thing, she got lost inside her own house during that earthquake. She got lost in a bedroom, and it took her servants trying to find her, because she had the things up on, she had like an intricate, like, this is where I'm sleeping every night, because every night after her seance in her blue room, where she communed with the spirits, she had to go sleep in another bedroom. It was basically like sleep tag, because if they couldn't find her, they weren't going to be able to torture her in her sleep, I guess. She had Tiffany stained glass windows in the house, and those were very expensive. She even has a Tiffany stained glass window that no light will ever see. There's no light that comes in, but there's doors that go to nowhere. She's got an actual ceiling, the window lights inside, in between in the staircase. You can look down and see, but it's actually windows. And one of the things that I like, one of the modern things, when she watered her garden, when she watered her plants in the greenhouse, the runoff would go out to the garden so that the gardens were also watered and there was no water wasted. And if any of you guys have ever lived anywhere where they had those crank windows,
oh God, I had a bunch of those.
She come up with the idea for the crank windows and crank shutters.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, she was eclectic and a little bit weird,
inventive,
definitely ahead of her time. Definitely ahead of her time. The number 13 was prevalent through her house because of spiritualism, and I mean, I would suggest walking around the grounds, and a lot of people say that the house is all dilapidated and ugly, and the best thing of it would be the grounds, but I would suggest you go look for yourself and go learn more, and make sure to go in the basement and talk to Clyde. He's a spirit there that has stayed until this day, and like, he supposedly would help people back then, and he helps the patrons now and some of the employees. So go say hi to Clyde. We're going to send Kenny to Clyde, because basement, downstairs, corner.
Yes. Yes.
Now, who wants to tell us about the, oh, hold on. The seance room had one way to get in and 3 ways to get out. And as soon as you left to go out that door, you could not go back in. So once you were out, you were out.
Okay, so but like, were there like, obviously there were like deaths on the property then, since they had like spirits and stuff?
Oh yeah, a lot of her workers died while making the house. There was mysterious accidents, right?
Accident.
Yeah, accidents.
Yeah, so souls from Winchester victims, souls that, just didn't hang the damn tapestry right, all kinds of stuff. Who wants to go next?
Okay, so I have a question.
Kenny, you're up.
I'm next, but like, hold on, like, I'm confused. So like, so a lot of freaky shit was happening when they were building the house. So like, what was there before? Yeah. Like, nobody knows.
No, just a plot of land, 160 acres, I believe.
Well, that's really weird. Because how does a plot of land, like, all of a sudden, like, you know what I mean? Like, that's different, like than any other situation. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you could pick AHS where it's just one of those portals.
Yeah.
It's a damn hellmouth.
Yes. Next on our tour, we have Dr. Frost, and tell us where you will be taking us to buy a future home.
All right. Well, this house is pretty famous. Everybody and their mom, who doesn't live under a rock, has saw the 2012 movie, The Conjuring. This is the house that was loosely based off of the real situation that had transpired. So it was built in the 1700s. I think it was, I remember reading it was like one of the original colonial situations. Like it was like it was around the, what do you call it? American Revolution time type of situation. Okay, so there was countless deaths, suicides, and whatnot on the property situation. The people who built it was the Arnold family. Now, I have read, because one of the daughters who was living at the time in the house in the see, hold on, I need some water. I got something in my throat. Probably from laughing too much.
Probably.
Whew. Now,
Done dried yourself out.
Now, the family who built it, I think they all passed on the property. And then in the 1800s, there was a woman named Bathsheba Sherman who was around the property area. Now, word of mouth in the town was that this woman was, she was young, she was beautiful. And, of course, everybody was jealous. And what have you. So she ended up having taking care of I think maybe either babysitting or something, where the baby was in her care and it died. And I think the cause of death was like a needle was impaled or something about a needle to the child, and everybody thought that she had sacrificed the baby to stay young and beautiful forever. But that was just rumors.
Kind of like Madame Lalaurie.
Right.
Delphine.
Well, I mean,
we don't know. That's alleged. We don't know the real Delphine did that. We just know that in AHS it happened.
Now, the Perron family moved in the 1970s. And I recall right from the get-go, when they started unpacking, they saw an apparition and shit. So one of the little sisters recalled hearing voices that said there are 7 dead soldiers buried inside. I don't know what the hell that's about. I don't know what that could mean. So it was kind of interesting because the mother of the family, she started experiencing oppression because I guess something about the spirit of the woman in the house that was the mistress of the house was jealous, which people thought it was the spirit of Miss Bathsheba, who was accused of witchcraft. But let the family tell it, they don't think it was her. They think it was somebody who was there before her. But once, Ed and Lorraine Warren, y'all know who they are, right? Once they came on the scene, Lorraine said that it was Bathsheba. So that's why in the movie, she was the villain. But in actuality, it was not her. And why I'm saying this is going to come into play with present day. Because at the end of the day, like, y'all, this stuff is for real. Like, I don't know why they wrote it in the movie that this woman did all that stuff. Like, that's very reputation damaging, especially with somebody dead. You know what I mean? Everybody's on mute. But let me see.
Why do you think that they said such mean things about her?
Well, like I said, there was a baby that this woman was watching, and it died in her care, and everybody was jealous because she was young and beautiful and what have you. So I think that they just, used that situation. Because when she was babysitting that baby, she was what, 14, 13, maybe 16, like, you know what I mean? So she lived the rest of her life. Also, it was weird because she died unexplainable. They said she was her cause of death was I forgot, but like she was literally like turned to stone. So that was a little
Oh,
freaky.
wow. Kind of like
Wait,
Dirt in
real
the
real
Butt.
stone, or was it that disease where people's bones like turn so hard they're like stone?
Not like real stone, like not like actual
Not
stone,
like
but like
Medusa or anything.
no, not like that, but like you know what I mean, like stiff, just like a
Okay.
stone.
Right, got you.
So Ed and Lorraine Warren were there, and they wanted to hold. Like this had been 2 years had passed. They came back. They were like, "Okay, it's getting worse. We're gonna hold the séance." And in the movie, the mom is possessed and all, but like that didn't happen. What really happened is she was thrown across the room, almost died. They told the Warrens to get the F out, rightfully so. Um,
Kenny, let me ask you this because I'm not as familiar with it. I haven't like actually looked up the information. I know one of the Warrens' infamous cases, which because they've been questioned about it as to the validity of it, um, did was that the one where the famous picture of the young daughters that are like up in the air and they said it looks like they're jumping, but it actually, they were like flown or thrown? Is that the same one?
no, mm-mm.
That's the Connecticut house, right?
No, that was in London or wherever the hell.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And I don't think you said where this house is.
Oh, it's in Harrisville, Rhode Island.
Oh, okay, Rhode Island.
So there has been well, first of all, they told them Warrens to get the F out. And they went on living in that house for another 7 years, 6 years. So in the movie they were only there for like a year, but in actuality they lived 10 years in that house. And it's kind of weird because in this circumstance they had a lot of good experiences, but then a lot of bad experiences. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
like some of the children developed friendships. Some, you know what I mean. It was kind of like that situation. But the mom was being oppressed. The mom even recalled, because I skimmed through the book. The mom had woke up with somebody with a broken neck with pitchforks and torches and shit, talking in an old, butcher type accent. So that would have been freaky. And then she decided, we're gonna get the F out. But before that, it was weird because one of the daughters, I think her name was Andrea, she said that she had experienced, and the whole family had experienced UFO sightings at that place too.
Huh. So maybe it was aliens all along, not really spirits or
Well,
demons.
again in the
Maybe
book,
all of the
in the book,
supernatural
the
things.
family describes the house as a portal, disguised as a farmhouse. So I don't know what type of situation happened or whatever, but there was another incident where the mother kind of got peace, knowing that about the house. They had it closed off. fireplace that hadn't been used since, a long time. She went in, another room, and it was, whatever. The room was empty. The fireplace wouldn't work. She came back in. There was different furniture there, different whole situation. There was a family there. The fireplace was lit up. And it was a family there eating dinner dressed in the fucking 1600s. And two men looked at her and they were like freaked out, like, who is this woman right here? And then she realized she was the ghost.
Oh, that's like The Others.
Right.
Love that movie. Love that movie. If anybody hasn't seen it, check out The Others with Nicole Kidman. I can't remember what year it came out, but it's an awesome movie. But anyway, I digress.
So then flash forward to 2010 when they were filming The Conjuring. Before they had tried to get the family to tell their story, and they didn't want to because they didn't want to reopen that can of worms. Well, when the family went out to the set, the mom stayed home. She didn't want nothing to do with it. She ended up something happened where she was pushed and hurt her back. And they said the mom thinks it was, the spirit of Miss Bathsheba did not like being portrayed as the bad person in the movie. And they said that she pretty much doesn't like it that, as we got to remember that, a long time ago, the world wasn't as progressed and
right
friendly. She did not like it that a man played her, an open, I don't know if he was trans or whatever. She did not like that and appreciate it. So she is giving the mom hard, and the family. I don't know what's going on with that still. Also,
was that the movie where no, that's a different movie. Never mind.
So
go ahead.
I mean, there's a book about it. We might have to get, because I know the sister, she goes on like YouTube shows. We might have to get her as a guest.
That would be cool.
That would be cool.
That'd be interesting.
I'm interested because, like, why would they stay there for 10 years though? You know what I mean?
Well, maybe they were friendly at first and then it got bad, or did they stay after it was bad?
I don't know. But then she said there was a lot of alien sightings there too. So I'm like, okay.
Maybe like all the paranormal was drawn to that area. They say different spots around the world are like more energy driven. There's high energies that come from there. Because like Easter Island is one of them where there's supposedly high energies there that you can feel and you can sometimes hear, I guess.
Well, that concludes it. I really want to know more about this situation. Like,
Kenny, I got a question.
Yes.
Do you think that maybe they stay there so long because like some poltergeists will start out being friendly and helpful, and then
manipulate the relationship?
Yep, and then they become malevolent. Do you think maybe that could have been why they stayed 10 years?
Or maybe,
I don't know, but it's interesting because like a lot of good shit went down there, according to one of the sisters. Like they said half the family wanted to stay and never wanted to leave, and half the family wanted to run out. So it's like a lot of shit went on. I might have to read the book. I think it's like a trilogy too. But that's just weird. Like,
welcome back, Mike.
I've had
so that's like another AHS thing, like a portal, type of a lot of shit going on. But that was kind of trippy with that. The mom went in the kitchen and like it was a whole different family there. Like that would have been trippy.
Yeah, that would freak me out.
Well, I mean, the mom, like, from what I heard, it's giving her peace, I guess, which to each his own. But I mean, that would have freaked me out. I've been like, what the fuck?
I
Is this
just,
the Conjuring
I
House?
don't get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
But that's
the
kind of like, that's kind of sad that they, you know, that ever since, you know, the Warrens were there, they wrapped all this bad shit on this one lady that that didn't even, as far as people are concerned, like she would never had anything to do with that house. Like she didn't even live at the house. So that's kind of
Well,
like, damn.
the Warrens are still questioned a lot because people think that they're
frauds.
that it's all a hoax.
Yep.
And exactly
the years
because
go by, the Warrens
Lorraine
realize-
Warren said that the spirit that was oppressing the mother was this lady who died of whatever, turned to stone. But the mom said that the spirit that was oppressing her had a broken neck. So obviously, you know what I
Conflicting
mean? Yeah.
issues.
So that kind of makes me seem like, okay, were the Warrens like, you know what I mean? I don't know.
You never know.
You never know. Yeah.
Well,
we'll never
maybe
know.
we might know. They might, something might come out one day, but
I
yeah.
want to get one of them sisters in this. I want to get somebody a guest on here or something, because there's something about this situation. It's like I'm so inquisitive because, like, had it been me, had it been me, oh hell no.
Hell no.
Well,
Michael,
that
did you have
concludes
any
it.
questions for Kenny? Because he's right at the end.
Oh no, I missed his point, but the only thing that I would have had to add is about the fraud and stuff that the Warrens are always accused of.
Well,
and those movies are really those movies just add a lot of Hollywood
exactly,
to what the court cases
because
are.
in the movie they make it look like the Perron family like didn't go to church. They weren't in actuality. This family they were like strictly like. And they said that when they went to the church, I guess they turned them down, the family down. So I'm like, damn.
Yeah.
But in the movie, like it's the Warrens were the heroes. In actuality, they went and they caused a bunch of chaos.
Right.
Well, in Conjuring 2, the Warrens weren't even there. The Warrens like showed up for like one day in that house in the Conjuring 2.
Yeah,
The one in
small
England.
little window.
Yeah. But they're still good movies.
Well, I guess then we're on to the next stop on our tour.
Who's that?
That would be me.
All right.
Yeah.
What do you got for us?
I will be taking our lovely viewers down the road to the left and around the corner to the Lizzie Borden house. The Lizzie Borden house is in Fall River, Massachusetts. It still stands to this day. It is a bed and breakfast. They do tours, and also they do let people stay there. Before they even had the bed and breakfast officially up and running, when they first talked about it, it was already booked with reservations from people wanting to stay at the Lizzie Borden house.
Wow.
That tells you the popularity of the story, and that, a lot of people do know it. But everybody probably knows the little rhyme and knows that much about it for the most part, but not
Wait,
the
can you say the
details.
rhyme?
I don't even know the whole thing. Was it Lizzie Borden took an axe, gave her father 40 whacks.
Nice.
When she's done, I don't remember the rest, but the rest is about giving someone else 51.
Same.
And that's her stepmother. So, yeah. Damn it, I should have pulled it up now. But Lizzie Borden was the younger daughter of Andrew Borden and Sarah Borden.
Melinda.
Sarah, yes.
And when she saw what she had done, she gave her mother 41.
That's what it was. 41.
Sorry, I was on mute.
Thank you. Thank
Continue.
you. Thank you. And that's why everybody knows that, and they don't know the actual story. And the thing is that she was born to Andrew and Sarah Borden. She was the younger of two daughters, and her mother actually died not too long after she was born. From what I read, I don't believe it wasn't as close, like it wasn't childbirth related, but it was a little while after that. And 3 years after that, her father remarried, and he remarried Abby Gray. And when they were married and the girls basically grew up with them, I'm not sure how much older her older sister was, but it wasn't a big gap or anything. It was within a couple of years span. And the girls, excuse me.
You all right?
Yeah. The girls actually disliked their new stepmother so much that they wouldn't call her by her name, or they wouldn't call her mother or stepmother or mom or anything like that. And they wouldn't even call her Abby. They called her Mrs. Borden. And that's what the girls until adulthood is what they called her. These girls sound like they were brought up privileged, and so they weren't held accountable maybe for much. So their attitude towards people they felt were beneath them was very, very publicly rude. And that was how they thought it was okay to be, I guess. I mean, I don't know him, wasn't there, can't talk to someone who was, but yeah, like even the maid that lived in their home, her name was Bridget, and they refused to call her Bridget. They insisted and always called her Maggie, because Maggie was the name of the previous maid, and they just refused to change it. So they called this new person by the old person's name because it was convenient for them. And who knows, maybe to be a little rude. I'm not sure. But yeah, they did things like that to a lot of people, and just, they felt they were entitled.
Wow.
I should say. Now, where is it? Then, the morning of August 4th, 1892, is the year and the date of the incident. And that's when Andrew and Abby Borden were murdered in their home. Andrew was found murdered and mutilated on the sofa. And I believe it was the living room. It may have been the parlor. And the mother was murdered next to the bed in her bedroom. But from her position, they assumed she was kneeling down to possibly make the bed, which I don't know why you'd get on your knees to make the bed. And I saw the picture of the bed. It didn't make sense, but that's what they thought then. So then when they were, sorry, my kid's screaming in the background. Her sister, her name was Emma. That was Lizzie's sister. And Lizzie's full name is Lizzie Andrew Borden. She was named after her father, with the Andrew anyway, with her middle name. She was given that as, I guess, a thing for her father. I'm not even sure if maybe back then that was what they did. I'm sure it was more customary to do things like that, because I know nowadays some people still do, but more people name after, the same sex person, unless it's one of those kind of unisex names. Just one that seems more male for a male, one that's more female, But on that morning, the morning was completely crazy. The people in the house for even the day before weren't feeling well, and they all had, well, not all, a few of them had stomach issues. And so they had gone to the doctor and said that they weren't feeling well. and they were basically sent home and told that they were okay. And history thinks that they had food poisoning, but they're not sure. And so on the day of the murder, Lizzie was the maid. Okay, that's where it's at. The maid went upstairs to take a nap because she wasn't feeling well because they had been sick. Were from what they thought was their food, their milk, whatever. And they thought it could be malicious. So the maid didn't feel well. She did some cleaning the windows, and then went upstairs to take a nap. She woke up when she heard Lizzie screaming, that terrifying scream that no parent or any person for that matter really wants to hear when you know something's absolutely terrifyingly wrong. And so she came running down, and Lizzie told her that someone had murdered her father, and she was kind of blocking the doorway. So the maid tried to get past and look, and she said, "No, don't look. Go and get the doctor," who happened to live next door. So she went to get the doctor, and the maid had asked her, "Where were you at when this happened?" And at this time, everyone thought the mother was gone because she had left earlier in the morning. And Lizzie said that she was in the backyard. I don't remember exactly what it was, but she was in the backyard getting something. And then when the police showed up, long story short, when the police showed up later, Lizzie told the police that she had gone to the barn to get some iron. So that right there was questionable. And there was many other things throughout that were like that, where one thing was said, another. She was caught days before trying to buy poison from the pharmacy, and she said it was to kill moths, and they wouldn't sell it to her without a prescription, which I'm glad they even did that back then. Thank you. But she then, so when all of this stuff was coming up about the murder trial, they brought that up to her, and she swore up and down she wasn't there, and that the people were lying, because even another customer and another worker confirmed seeing her there that day, and she swore she wasn't there that day and had never been there. So it was just a lot of inconsistencies with her stories. But then Lizzie said she kept telling them, "I think my mother came home. I think, I think she said Mrs. Borden. I'm sure she didn't say mother, but as in relation to her stepmother." She kept saying, "I think she came home. I thought I heard her come in. I'm not sure." And so nobody knew, nobody checked. And then Lizzie insisted again, "Hey, I think she came in. Someone check upstairs." And so the maid went to go upstairs with the neighbor, and that's when they discovered the body of the stepmother in the bedroom. So that all happened. Then
I have a question, Melinda. This is something that's like bothered me like ever since I learned about Lizzie Borden. If she did do it, like, I wonder, like, if she sat there trying to like almost not practice screaming, but like working herself up to that.
Yeah.
Like what kind of thinking did she have to go? Because you can tell when that kind of scream is being faked.
Right. Exactly.
Like, it's either blood curdling or it's not. Like, I don't know.
But you know what bothers me about that I was going to mention later, but because you brought it up, I'll mention it now, is the fact that the maid was upstairs sleeping on, I believe, what was the third floor. No, I've seen the house. So with the basement, there's a third floor, if you consider the basement the first, but main floor and then second floor. So the maid was on the second floor. The stepmother was on the second floor. If she woke up hearing Lizzie scream, why didn't she wake up when the stepmother was being bludgeoned with an axe?
Yeah.
So that makes you wonder about her as well as a suspect. And even the police did look at her as a suspect, but she was cleared. So then it all came back to Lizzie. And, she's claimed her innocence since day one. but there's a lot of inconsistencies with all of her story, and her story from the days before and the days even a little bit after. And I don't know, it just doesn't seem right, but I could see both. You really could. The older sister was out of town, but then Lizzie started telling people also that the reason everyone had been sick, and she said this right when everything started happening, when they found the bodies, the reason everybody had been sick was because they suspected that her father had an enemy and someone poisoned their milk. And so that was, they don't know if that was alibi or to shift blame. But then she even, or the police, who was it? I think it was the medical examiner. Yeah, it was the medical examiner who actually took the milk from the home and sent it to a lab out of state. I believe it might have even been Harvard, to be tested. And he had the stomachs, when he did the autopsies, he had the family's stomach sent as well. And no trace of poisoning or poisons was ever found or anything like that. So that happened too. And for her to be saying that right away and be blaming that, like, I don't know. She was in close quarters. She would have heard it too. You hear that blood curdling scream from someone being, killed. I've seen the house. You can look it up online. You can look up the garage where it is now is the same place the garage was then. The house hasn't been altered. Like the outside may have been, renovated, but it's still the same shape. There's no additions or anything added on. So you can see the floors and you can see where she would have been. And it's not a huge yard. It's nothing like the Winchester Mansion for sure. So they would, I don't see how she wouldn't have heard two people being axed to death.
Right, exactly.
I mean, one, okay, maybe you were in the barn at the time. Sound was muffled or something because it was the front of the house. But now, hearing a second one, and at that point, you probably weren't in the barn anymore. I mean, but I have to say she was acquitted, or she was indicted, and then she was acquitted of all charges. And when she was indicted December 2nd, 1982. And her trial began that following June. She didn't take the stand in her own defense, and her inquest testimony was not admitted into evidence. So there was a lot of screw-ups with the whole case. Yeah. Before the police even got there, because there just so happened to be some big police, like, picnic type of thing where they were all, out at a celebration type of thing like that. So the one guy who was at the police station is the one who came. And by the time someone went and got him and he was able to come see, he had to come see it. And then he didn't secure the crime scene, and he just left to go back to the police station to call to tell everybody else to come. And then they all went back. So even before he got there, over 30 people had been in this house trampling the crime scene and checking on things, between the doctor, the medical examiner, the neighbors, the friend, the maid, the Lizzie herself. Just like there was about 30 people that had trampled that crime scene when the police finally arrived to see what was going on, and where there was no evidence at that point that they probably could have salvaged, or they would have been able to weigh, because they wouldn't have been able to just, they'd have to, everybody's a suspect at that point, which it just wouldn't have helped. It wouldn't have done anything. And then June 20th, 1893, Lizzie was acquitted of the murders. And no one else was ever charged with any of these crimes. No one. Like, to this day, they have no explanation as to who did it.
Wow.
Lizzie and Emma inherited a significant portion of their father's estate after his death and after Lizzie was acquitted. and it allowed them to purchase a new home together. Neither one of them stayed in the house again. The maid actually went back one time after the murders, and that was to get her things, and then she was gone. So, you know, I mean, I don't see why she would live there anymore anyway. I mean, that would be
Fuck
really
no.
weird, not to mention morbid. Um, Now she's been widely criticized, and like people just straight out say Lizzie Borden is guilty. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And she was back then by all of her neighbors, her friends, the family friends, and everything else. So she then moved in 1905. She moved out of the house she shared with her sister, and the two never spoke again. So that had to be a pretty bad falling out to not ever talk to your sister again until you're dead, with your sister that you've known your whole life and you were just living with for a good portion of your life. They say that Emma may have been uncomfortable with Lizzie's close relationship with other women. I don't know if that is referring to her sister being jealous that someone else was getting her sister's attention and it was a female, so it was more intimate to her, I guess, because that was her sister. Like, you know, the best friend steals you away from your other best friend type of thing. Or if it was sexually and she was interested sexually, and then so her sister didn't want anything to do with her because of that. Because I could see it back then both ways. So there's no definitive answer. And then Lizzie Borden died of pneumonia in the same town she was born in 1927. Now the house is considered to be haunted to this day. People are still have like regularly said they've seen things, they've heard things. People say they hear screams, they hear a chopping sound, but it's like the way people describe it is they say it's not anything like the movies. It's nothing you've ever heard in your life, and it sends chills down your spine. So I can only imagine the sound of probably hearing it actually sound like it's hitting flesh and bone, because that would be kind of, you know, messed up to anybody's mind. Well, not anybody, but most people. You can, yeah, like I said at the beginning, you can still stay in this house. It is a bed and breakfast now. They did have it as just a museum for a long time before the bed and breakfast. And then they turned it into the bed and breakfast, and it still partially has museum stuff in it. They still have certain things in certain rooms and stuff. I'm not sure how much it costs. I wish I would have looked that up, how much it costs a night.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can still stay there, and they say you see and hear things. So if you guys are really looking for an adventure, check out your new home. the Lizzie Borden House Bed and Breakfast in Fall River, Massachusetts. Come on down. But that's, yeah,
That's it.
that's it.
Let's go.
So what do you got?
This was remember I picked this one. Nobody knew what it was. Nobody knew anything about it, and I started researching it. And this is, I think, of that list, this is the odd, most interesting kind of one, because there's really very little documented about this. This is almost like those old wives' tales. It's like this place has now garnered on the America's Most Haunted Place with only one documented incident. So this is the House of Death in New York, New York. And basically what this place is it's on West 10th Street down in Greenwich Village. And it is an apartment complex. It's got like 10 little apartments there. They're all together on this little brownstone. And Mark 1900 to 1901, but they say Mark Twain haunts this place. The locals, they say that he haunts this place.
Wait,
seen
pause.
In the windows.
I'm related to him.
Wait, what?
Do you relate to Mark
Twain?
Wait,
All right, go ahead.
What? Are you serious?
My great grandmother's something about her. She pretty much had yes, yeah, it's there. So I mean,
Well, all right. You inherit any of the fortune?
hell no.
Would have
Well,
been
Kenny's
nice
great great
though.
great grandfather, he lived there
Michael, I can't hardly hear
just a
you.
year, but so the people saying that he haunts there.
Get a little
Okay,
closer.
hold on. Get a little closer. How's that?
Get a
No?
little
Yeah, I'll
closer,
turn the speaker on. Hold
baby.
on. 1 second. Entertain.
To the maracas,
All right.
maraca, cucaracha.
Okay. Can you hear better? Any better? Hello?
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 Say it again.
Hello?
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 Nothing. Hold on.
No, I'm just messing with you. I'm just messing with you. We can
Oh,
hear you.
okay. Crazy. You can hear fine?
Yeah, we can hear you. Just
Okay.
speak up a little bit.
Yeah, I will. So people said that they seen Mark Twain in the window, that he's been asking about things that, attribute to some of his stories and his literary stuff. But again, nothing's been documented. It's just wives' tales with Mark Twain. Why he was haunting this place when he only lived there less than a year, who knows? But that's where the one of the wives' tale stories started. There has been 22 deaths attributed to this place, but it's an apartment complex that's been there since the 1800s, since the Civil War. So it's a residential. So of course many people are going to die when you have 10 units on the thing. The only documented case that is actually there and in writing of something really tragic happening there was a lawyer that was staying there. His name was Joel Stanley, I think. Sternly, something like. He was a lawyer. He was staying there in 1987, and out of nowhere, with no prompted cause, he beat his 6-year-old adopted daughter to death in one of the apartments. And so that is the only legal known case of something just going very bizarre, because everybody says there was nothing about this man that would prompt him to do this. And they say it was the place, the fear of the place, the energy of the place made him do this. So that was the only documented case. Other unconfirmed cases are there was an off-Broadway actress that states that while she was there trying to write a book, she felt threatened. She kept hearing loud noises and footsteps and, all the typical haunted house stuff. And she died mysteriously real close after working on this book about her experiences at this house. So again, could be total coincidence. But there hasn't been anything besides that one guy, like the Lizzie Borden case or anything at this place. It's one of those things that through the years since the Civil War, more stories upon more stories upon more stories get to be this huge wives' tales. And now it actually makes the list of the haunted places in the world when there's not really any evidence to support that. So it's interesting how we work in our culture with, gossip and rumors and stuff. But that's it on that one.
So do you think that that guy was trying to do I think his name is Ronald James DeFeo or something like
Yeah,
that?
Japan was the Amityville. Yeah,
Yeah. Do you think
possibly.
he's blaming do you think he's blaming it on his house because he could
Could be.
possibly get away with
Exactly what DeFeo did.
it?
It's oh, the house made me do it. Satan made me do it. I mean, this is an adoptive daughter of this. There's a New York Post article that's out there on this place that really goes into detail about this thing. I haven't gone into detail about any of his court transcripts or anything that went on, but you could assume that it could be something like that, especially when you have an adoptive daughter. You don't know the relationships between, the adoption or who the 6-year-old daughter was. We don't know, hardly anything about this man without really going into it, but it could be. Yeah.
That is freaking cool.
But could this place be haunted? Could this place have 22, souls? And they even said one of the ghosts is a cat. Could it be? Sure. It's a residential. It's a residential that's been there since the Civil War. So if you believe in spirits and you believe in things that exist and stuff like that, any old hotel or residential are going to have stuff like that. So
Well, do you think maybe any of it, just knowing Ryan, was a inspiration for Murder House, the idea of the murder house.
Could be. Yeah, because
I mean, death house, murder
the wives'
house.
tales and stuff were very similar to that. That everybody that died in this house is now, or resided in this house, is now haunting this house. So they said there's been 22 deaths attributed to the house. There's supposed to be 22 spirits. So that would be very similar to what Ryan did with Murder House. Anybody that was there and died there stayed there.
Right. I'm just going to go ahead and say that I believe that it was.
I do
Okay.
too. Oh, I do too. I believe in it.
Murder house, death house, trapped spirits that now torture other people. Sounds very much like the murder house.
Well, what's interesting is because the house is there, it's functioning. It's still a residential right now in New York on 10th Street. Is that there's bloggers on YouTube that go just walking right up to the house, and it's right there in a regular New York City residential, just crowded street, blocked in by two different buildings on each side. And both bloggers that I watched this week that were walking up to the house, their whole demeanor changed. They said they felt fear, they felt cold, they felt just walking up to this regular residential place. And it was, when you watch the bloggers, it's really neat because you just see it happen in their face. It's not like put on. They're just walking, talking to the camera, and then you just see something take over their face. So, who knows? Next time I go to New York, or Die.
There's a reason to go. Yeah, Die's already there.
Die. She's there right now. If you're watching,
yeah,
still in the city,
isn't it? It's New York, isn't it?
Yes. West 10th Street, 14 West 10th Street. Go give us a little expose over there.
That'd be awesome.
Street, 14 West 10th Street. That would be cool.
I have to send her a message too.
Yep. All right. What does anybody else have? Questions, concerns? Who wants to leave the viewers with a comment or question for next week?
My question is, what the fuck would you guys do if you were in a haunted house?
There you go. Good question.
Because I would get out.
Exactly. Like Eddie
What if you couldn't? What if you couldn't?
Then I would get out with a cardboard box.
Mm-hmm.
I'd live under the bridge.
Kenny, let me ask you this. Do you feel the same of any haunting or any spirit, or just malevolent, evil spirits? Because if I was haunted by a ghost, it was just like, cool, I'd hang out with them.
Any.
I'd hang out.
Any.
Oh, no, I'd hang out with them.
Nope.
Kitty?
I would stay as long as I humanly could. I mean, they're going to have to kill me to get me gone.
Yep.
I don't know. I might try a little tricks up my sleeve to get them out. I don't care if they're nice or mean. You're getting out. Either you're getting out or I am.
One of us has got to go.
Right.
Kenny's taking a 50-pound bag of salt with him.
Yep.
Remember, the sage don't work, but hey, you can still try.
You can try.
Right.
Grow a ton. Okay, so question for the audience. What would you do if you were living with a spirit or living in a haunted house? Leave your comments below. We'll get to that question next week. Next week, we are still on a break. We're not going to go back to our hotel discussion until another week. And next week, we have a big task ahead of us. The panel is going to review George Orwell's 1984, which none of us has finished reading. So that should be interesting. It should be fun. So if you're joining us next week and you've read 1984, a lot of us here in America did have that in our high school curriculum. I know I did my freshman year. If you are a fan of Orwell's work or you know of it, join us for next week. We discuss. Basically, what we're trying to do is seeing if there's any type of connection when we get into American Horror Story 1984. If there's any look back at Orwell's work and seeing if there's any inspiration from there. So panel, you guys got some reading to do. And that's all.
Yeah. Well, we would like to thank everyone for going on this amazing haunted tour for your next dream home. Join us next time, and maybe you'll just find what you need.
Bye, everybody.
Peace.